Welcome to the Project Endure podcast, the place where we talk about life, endurance, persistence, perspective, and so much more. I'm Joe Rinaldi, and I'll be your host. Let's jump in. Welcome back to the Project Endure podcast. It is episode 30, and we have myself, Joe Rinaldi, and a very, very special guest down in San Antonio, Texas, Igor Torves. Igor, what's going on, man?
How's it going, Joe? Thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate that.
Of course, man. It's a no-brainer for me. We've been connected now for probably like 4 or 5 months. I think you originally reached out to me once you found the Hard Things Club, and we've been working together a little bit and just striking up a friendship. And, one of the things I have to say about you before I let you introduce yourself is that you are hands down one of the most likable people I've ever come across in my entire life. And I don't know what it is yet. I can't put my finger on it. You're just so likable. So with that being said, Igor, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
All right, before that, so let me say thank you for that. And I can say the same thing, exactly the same thing about you, Joe. You're very likable.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, lots of smiles. So I'm Igor Torves. I'm originally from Brazil. I'm born and raised in Brazil. I moved to US at 31 years old. I'm about to turn 37 tomorrow. I was in the Brazilian Marine Corps for 10 years in active duty. Then I did some college there, and I moved to US and hoped to learn English. That was my first thought. I wanted to spend a couple months and then travel somewhere or do something different. Ended up staying here. It's been a long journey. I'm sure we're probably going to get into it in a little bit. That's it. Now I am a personal trainer. I am a U.S. Army medic with the Texas National Guard. I work on active duty since the end of 2020, beginning of 2021. And that's where I'm at right now.
Awesome, man. Well, you are my first guest from Brazil originally. And
Cool.
before we get into the questions, let me ask you a little bit about Brazil, because it seems like a very different place from the United States. So maybe tell us some of the main differences between Brazil and the United States, just to start us off here.
Awesome. That's too easy. I would say, so Brazil, it's a very evolved country, but it still is a third world country. We do have lots of social problems. I would say socially, we're very different as people. We have that whole Latin culture. People really like get together. It's like ongoing process all the time. People really like to party. It's pretty crazy. But we do have some, I would say South America in general, it's unsafe depending where you're at, especially bigger cities. I'm originally from Salvador, which is the northeast coast of Brazil, and then I moved to Rio once I joined the Marine Corps. It was where I spent 10 years of my adult life. As many other third world countries, we do have drug cartels, different social problems that we don't have it here, but you can feel pretty unsafe. It's just weird to describe because I feel like where we are right now in the US, I now do the same and take for granted the safety. But once we are outside of this bubble of protection, safety, we can see the real world how it is. So besides being a very beautiful country, really large, Brazil is the 5th largest country in the world, mainland and territory. But we also have lots of violence, drugs, drug cartels, corruption is a huge part of the government, um, and that makes a little unsafe for whoever is there for so long. It doesn't even understand or can't see it because it's so used to it. They're
Mm.
so used to that normality of the danger. But once we are outside of it, you can grasp the concept of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, I want to rewind. In the beginning, you said in South America they like to party. And I would just like to add in the United States, we like to party. So I think that's more of a similarity than a difference. But
That's
anyway,
true.
on a serious note, Igor, why don't we start with the first question? And I think this is really going to take us a lot of different places, which is good. But what is the hardest thing or circumstance that you've ever had to handle as a person? So something that you didn't have a choice in.
Hmm. Well, there were a few that I've about turned 37, so there there are a few that happened. I know some people are very fortunate and had less, and some people had more than me. But can I point that out like a few ones?
Yeah.
So okay, I'm gonna do it. First one, I think I was probably 18 years old. Uh, I came from a Christian family. My parents joined church when I was 10 years old. I guess my dad was an alcoholic at the time. He wanted to fix his relationship with my mom and with the family itself. So he joined this church, which for me today it sounds more like a cult than a church. They're very radical. They call themselves the only church of Jesus. So they're the only real deal. Uh, so that turned into a lot of controlling from my parents, from uh, coming from a background where my dad was a very loose as a father, and joined in this church, and they had very strict rules. And one of the rules was that as a parent, they had to physically punish they had to physically punish their kids in order to uh, clean their sins in front of God. And so every family would have a leather belt, whatever, and if you made something, you had to get naked, lay down in bed, and wait for your parents to hit you 10, 20, 100 times. It depends whatever you did. As a teenager, you start getting a little rough because you wanted to have a normal life, you wanted to have a girlfriend, you want to go out with your friends, and I didn't have that choice. It wasn't a choice for me. I knew if I came home and it was too late, I was gonna get my ass beaten. And we, my dad and I started having problems. And one day he said, "If you want to live on your own way, outside of this church, outside of what I believe, because you do not accept uh, God's discipline, you have less than 6 months to figure it out, find a place to go, and you're not staying in my house." And I had just finished high school. I was trying to get into college, and I had nowhere to go. I remember him saying, "You have a couple months to figure it out," and I didn't. I was working for my grandpa. He had a corner store. It wasn't enough for me to pay rent and go anywhere, live by myself. So my grandpa said, "Hey, have you thought about the military? The military might be a route." Um, so this is how I actually joined in the military in Brazil, not because I wanted to do it at first. It was like, okay, this is an option. They would feed me 3 times a day. I'll go training and whatever. At least I'll have how to restart my life. So for an 18-year-old who had no freedom and and find you find yourself at 18 years old, no freedom at all, and your parents say, "Hey, go find somewhere to live because you're not staying here," and you have no car, you don't have a job, you don't have a degree, you're still trying to figure out what to do. That was pretty hard at the time, and after that, there was more things. And in one of my relationships, we lost a child. She actually had an abortion without telling me. That was the second hard thing. That one messed me up for a long time. And I think the third one was moving to US at age of 31, not knowing the language. Um, it was a hard choice, but I knew it was going to be good for me in the long run. None of them were physical. I think, and at least for me, when it's a physical thing, endurance event or something, you prepare yourself, you train for it, you go for it, right? You know what to get into it. But when it's not a physical thing, it's more like, okay, it's emotional. You have no control of anything else whatsoever. I think those are the those are the hardest ones, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And let me rewind a sec because you kind of skimmed over that second and third hardest thing
Oh,
in your life, right? So, and
yeah.
those sound like really hard things. And so, I know you said you lost a child, and that wasn't necessarily something that you had any control over because you didn't even know that it happened until after it happened. What are some of the emotions that you experienced after finding that out?
Uh, so anger, it was the most. Uh, I walked hand to hand, holding hands of anger for a long time, and that after that was a outburst of anger in my life. After that, it happened before, but after that was way more, especially because at the time we as a couple we were excited about the child. Our family knew, our friends knew about it. And at some point I was working at my duty station. She called me and said, hey, I need you to come and pick me up. I'm at the hospital. I was like, where are you at? She was like, I'm at this clinic. um, then I found out that she actually just had an abortion. And I had no idea of what was going on. Um, she was probably 4 months pregnant at the time, almost five. Um, eh, we never spoke again about that. I promised I was going to mention that event. Um, but that anger and frustration, they were there. Um, and it was there before, from getting kicked out of the house, growing up in a home where I was always in fear that I was going to get physically disciplined, or per se, that when you live in that state of fear, you kind of suppress your emotions.
Hmm.
Then I end the service, my option was working, drinking a lot, bouncing from training, uh, being an athlete in the Marine Corps, getting injured, getting back to drinking. um, and then when I thought that my life was going towards a better direction in that relationship, everything crushed. So that was, I think, frustration and anger. They were the emotions that was predominant at the time.
Hmm. You don't, and I know we've talked about this in our individual conversations, but you don't strike me as an angry person. And maybe part of that still lives deep down inside in you, but maybe in all of us, right? We all have that side somewhere. What was the turning point for you? Like, were you able to let go of that anger and frustration, or do you still hold on to some of that even to this day?
Oh, I think, Joe, I'll have that forever with me. It is, I messed up. It's part of, uh, you know, but it's my choice to feed this or not, those feelings. Um, because I think you posted this the other day on one of the Cup of Joe that I love it in the morning. I think it was a native Indian, something like this, a proverb that, what's the which wolf would be the stronger one, I'm not good with the quotes, but you know which one I'm talking
I
about.
got it. I'll read it real quick because I actually had it pulled up on my computer before you said that, which is so weird. An old Cherokee was teaching his grandson about life. And, he said, a fight is going on inside of me, he said to his grandson. And, it's a terrible fight. And it's between these two wolves. One is evil. He is anger, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, ego. And he continues, the other is good. He is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. The same fight is going on inside of you and inside of every person too. The grandson thought about it for a minute and then asked his grandfather, which wolf will win? The old Cherokee simply replied, the one you feed. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about, right?
Yes, exactly. I would never remember that to the top of my mind, but I've read this so many times in so many different ways, uh, uh, in so many different cultures. Even saying the same thing. It literally what happens is the one you feed most. That's the one that's going to survive, and we all have that, and I will always have it with me. But for years, I was totally blind with depression, anger, sorrow. I was hurt. I was betrayed. I was blinded by those feelings, and I was choosing them without knowing, and um, they will be always with me forever. It's just a matter of choosing what to feed and how to feed and what give it attention to or not. Those thoughts, they will be there. Um, when I was going to Buddhist temples, I was there once, and one guy was talking about meditation. He says meditation is pretty much it's just you watching your thoughts. It's not getting rid of them. And it's the same thing with emotions. We turn into reactive people because instead of feeling, having the thought, watching, letting go, or processing it, we hold on to them. And one of the Buddhist proverbs says that it's just like we have a hand of our brains like a hand, and you either hold them to the thoughts or you let them go. They can pass through your hand, you can watch them and let it go. And or a river, same thing. It just flows through it and you just watch it. But if you choose to hold them to it, you're going to feed that and you're going to hold them to that. I did not know any of this until I think until 2012. 2012, I got arrested fighting in the streets of Rio. I had signed up for a special force course. I was stationed at a special force battalion. I was part of the special boat teams. And I spent a few weeks in selection. It's a very similar process to the US Special Forces. The difference is they can hit you anytime for anything, anywhere in your body, face, ribs, whatever. They can physically punish you anytime at all times. I signed up for that. I don't know why. My mom and my family still think, well, you're chasing pain. Probably because I was hurting inside. So I was like, why not hurt outside too? So it was one of those things. You close your eyes, you embrace that pride, and all your friends are doing this. And you think that's the right way, and you think you're less than people who are going through that process. And okay, let me do this and prove that I can endure to this. So I signed up for that course. I stayed for a couple of weeks, and first time I got medically disqualified because of a tooth. Then 2 years later, I tried again. And 2 years later, when I tried again, it was when I was in that relationship, and I thought, okay, now I have nothing to hold me back. Let me do this. So we had to go through the physical test, the whole physical process, which isn't easy, but I don't think that's the hardest part of it. But putting yourself in a situation that you know you're going to get hit in the face, you're going to get electrocuted, you're going to go through all those things. And I wanted so bad because I had done a selection process before that, had graduated, but I haven't gone through the longest course, which was a 3 months long course. And I wanted to do so bad. What happened was I got hurt, I got injured, I got out of that training. I was, again, medically discharged from that course. And I was I was angrier. I was more upset. I was more frustrated. And it started like building up on me to the point that I was blacking out and punching walls, breaking my hand, punching people's cars, getting into fights in the traffic. And one day, a friend of mine and I, we went out to drink. We went to a club. We spent the whole night drinking. I blacked out. I don't remember. Apparently, I fought with somebody outside of the club. I went to my friend's house to grab my stuff, my backpack. On the way to his place, a fight happened. I can't even remember how it happened. I just remember flashes of it, punching people, getting kicked. And I kicked somebody who I didn't hit this person because I was too drunk. I hit somebody's car. The car belonged to a guy who was a cop, who called the cops on us. I apologized barely because I was drunk as a skunk. And everything apparently was fine. And we left and started walking. This police car came and they said, "Hey, you both are arrested." It's like, why? Cops in South America, they're a little different than here. They don't have like body cameras, whatever. When I said why, I almost lost all my teeth. Like he hit him on the face so hard. That I remember because I came back to my sense after getting hit. So I fell on the ground. I still had a glass in my hand. He started stomping on my hand with the glass on it. The glass went through my hand. So I got up and I said, "So you're going to hit me?" To like the man, offered my face, hit it again. The third time I offered my face again, it was like, "Come on, harder." So I kind of like stepped back. He fell down. I attempted to take his gun away from him. And as soon as I touched his weapon, his partner knocked me down. Then we were put forcefully inside the police car, and they say, "We're going to go for a ride," which is, if in Rio, they tell you that at 4:30 in the morning, people probably going to find your body in the ocean because they will execute you and throw you in a trash bag inside the ocean. They'll find you days later. Because I found bodies like that myself working, and it's a thing, unfortunately. And that was a close call. So my friends say, "Hey man, tell them that you're Marine Corps." They're like, "What are you saying?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm in the military." And why you didn't tell me that before? I was like, "Well, it hit my face before I could say anything." I blacked out again, and I woke up. I was in jail. Didn't have shoes on. My forehead was bleeding. And it was the year of my promotion to an NCO position, and my promotion was held and frozen for 2 years until I proved that I didn't do what they said I did. We did, because at first, Joe, they say, "Well, we found those guys drunk, and one of the guys is in the service. We can just get rid of them." So they said that they found me destroying a public trash can in the streets. And 2 years later, I had to go to court for 2 years, fighting over that. And finally, the court said there's no proof enough that he did this. So I finally got my promotion, my time back. Everything was replaced, but that took a huge toll in my life, financially, physically and emotionally, and it was one of my anchors outburst that day. And I kept having those episodes. A few months later, my brother and I, we were traveling and we got into a fight. I remember kicking him in the face. And I was on vacation. There was no need to be so stressed. And we got into this fight, and then we came home. After that, I was visiting my parents. So I flew from Rio to Salvador, traveled with my brother to have a good time. I ended up, destroying the whole thing pretty much. My brother's like my best friend, and it always will be. And it was heartbreaking for me to do that. And I remember coming home, like one day my mom asked me, I was probably 26 years old at the time. She's like, "Where is my son? Where is that boy who was kind and educated, polite, who left this house almost 10 years ago? Because I don't recognize you. If you're going to come home to do this, what are you doing? Please don't come back. Don't come to visit me." There were other episodes that made her really sad, and those were things that really stroked me really hard, because there was me doing that to myself. I just had no idea, or I just didn't pay attention to it. There was no, sorry for this word, but there was like no fucks given at all. It was just going. Pedal to the metal, and I'm gonna go with this anger and this frustration all the way. And I remember one day I was visiting my mom, and she had cleaned a T-shirt of mine, and somehow it stained. So I ripped the whole thing off. It's like, I don't want you touching my things. So it was in that level of anger that anything was becoming a huge thing. Then a year later, I went through a breakup, and I called my parents. This person told me that no one could stand me anymore, because I was really nice to everybody else, but those who were next to me, the closest ones. And everyone else thought I was, that smiley, just like I am with you, nice guy. If you weren't in the Marine Corps and didn't see me as an instructor, you would never know that I would be that yelly, angry dude who I actually used to work as an outlet to do those things. But when I didn't have that anymore, people around me started suffering. And 2013, I decided to find a therapist. And that was a really hard thing for me to do, was to recognize that I needed help and to understand that if I wasn't choosing that way, if I didn't choose that, going to look for help, I was going to end up alone, completely alone, with no friends, no family, nobody would stand to someone that, it's totally fine. And within seconds, go from 0 to 10 and start destroying things, punching walls, screaming, and I think hurting my mother, my brother, and the ones who were closer to me was my turning point. Including friends of my friends' parents saying, "Hey, you have a whole lot of potential, so why are you destroying yourself? Why you keep doing those things that you're always in trouble, you're always at the police station, always fighting, you always finding yourself in those crazy situations, places that you shouldn't be. That, as a military man, you shouldn't even be hanging out with these people. You shouldn't even be going to those places. You're putting yourself in danger." It was me trying to stay as close as I could to the danger in many situations. And I think some people, when they have mental health crisis, they might have suicidal thoughts. Those are very, um, they are a more like they're easier way to say and recognize, okay, this person is trying to harm themselves, but you
Hmm.
can live in a way that you're also trying to harm yourself silently. You don't need to be having suicidal thoughts, but you can be putting yourself in danger all the time. I was going, for my example, I was going to places where I knew people who got killed because they were in the military and they're hanging out in those places. And the cartel lords and people who work for the cartel caught them and they got executed, exploded with grenades, and I kept going to those places. Why am I going to those places? There was no reason for me to be there. It was that need 24/7 of putting myself in danger in those situations to feel the adrenaline. Oh, that was, let's say, feeling alive in a certain way, in a messed up way, um, because it's all you know.
Yeah.
You can relate to the fear.
Mm.
It sounds like home, as messed up as it sounds.
So,
Um,
so you're saying that the adrenaline rush and staying close to danger and chasing fear made you, in a way, feel comfortable because it was what you knew. Is that right?
exactly. Yeah. Thank you for putting this in better words than me, Joe.
No, man. I mean, you said it. I mean, hey, it's your story, and you said it beautifully. And it's a lot of stuff that, to be honest, I can't relate to. Right? I've never once thought about potentially being blown up by a grenade, or getting in a fight with a police
Yeah.
officer, whatever it is. But I think beneath the surface, right, there's a lot to relate to there, and it's interesting because now I know you, Igor. Over the past couple of months, we've worked together as you've built your business. And it's been really cool to watch you do hard things to better yourself. And so, like, obviously now you chase a certain kind of hard, a certain kind of challenge, a certain kind of discomfort that's different than what you used to chase. And so I'm curious, what's the hardest thing that you've ever done on purpose to better yourself? And why have you done that hard thing?
Um, that I think was moving to US. When you're 30 years old and I finished a 10-year contract with the Marine Corps. I was like, I'm not going to resign for more than this. I'm tired. This place is I have a lot of good memories, but I have bad memories as well. I had a reputation, good and bad, depending on where I was. And I felt like I needed to restart my life. First thing I was always running away from since a child is to learn English. My parents actually tried to, hire a teacher to teach me at home extra from school because you don't really learn. You learn like really basic stuff. Um, so that was my first thing. It was like, okay, I have some money saved. I I can go to the normal route, finish college. I was doing physical ed school. I wanted to work with fitness at that time. I had already made that turn in my life. I was, running, rock climbing, doing all this stuff physically. And I knew that if I had gone that route, I knew was what was going to happen. I knew that I was going to be just like my friends, which was fine. But I wanted a little more. I was like, okay, I need something to challenge me a little more. As I'm still young, have, I didn't have a wife or fiance or anything, or kids. So one of my friends texted me like, "Hey man, try to come to the US, try to learn English, apply to an English internship." I was like, "Dude, I don't know." She's like, "You're gonna learn here?" I was like, "All right, let's do it." So I got a visa. I got first a tourist visa. Arrived in New York, February 26, 2016. Tried to order a burger. Find out that I didn't know anything, that I couldn't say anything in English. I was like, "Dang, this is really hard." I started pointing at things. The guy looked at me made a thumbs up, and then he came with a burger and a beer. And I was like, well, yeah, got lost in Subway in New York. I was like, dang, this is going to be my life now. Freezing, had no idea how cold it was. I left Rio, it was 102 degrees Fahrenheit. Like, arrived in New York, was 26. I was ran into a CVS first, like, I need gloves. I don't have gloves and hat. So that was a restart for me. My college credits weren't accepted here. So I could not do what I was doing before. So first I got a job at a first dishwasher it was a seafood place. Yeah, as a dishwasher, I worked for 3 weeks. Then I got a landscaping job and started bouncing between those type of jobs. I was like, well, I have to figure it out. This my first job. There was a bunch of Brazilians there. They speak Portuguese all day. I was like, if I stay here, I'm not going to learn Portuguese because I'm going to be speaking Portuguese all day. So I started working on a landscaping company. I was the only Latin person there, and at Massachusetts, Cape Cod. Got a job after that at a hotel. They said they were going to change my visa from a student visa to a working visa. So it seemed like a really good deal. I was moving fast into the learning process of language because I was forced to speak English all day, and I had headaches every day. I didn't even speak Portuguese with anybody or read Portuguese to force myself to learn faster. And I worked with a bunch of people from Europe, from all over the world. So the only language that we have to speak to each other was English. And then after that, I found out they never applied for my working visa. They were trying to hold me for as long as they could, underpay me. My visa expired, so I couldn't go back to Brazil, because if I had left Brazil, US, I would have had to wait for almost 10 years to reapply to come back. They gave me an option to change my visa to a study visa. I had to pay $10,000 up front. There's a $10,000 deposit. I didn't have that money. My international driver's license was not accepted in Massachusetts, so I found out that I was driving illegally when my car got towed by a police officer. They took me to jail, and they say, "Hey," I was like, "Hey, I have an international driver's license that I paid when I was back in Brazil." I was like, "No, here in America, it's by state. Our state does not recognize this type of license." So they took it away. Anyways, I bounced between jobs until I finally, with the help of other people that I had in my life at the time, I fixed my situation. Finally, got a 2-year green card, and I knew that at the end of that process, that 2 years, if I didn't have anything on hand, I would have to go back to my old life. But I felt safe for the first time when I came to America. When I couldn't sleep in the first week because at age of 31 years old, you have lived in another country, full of you have been in violent situations. In my mind, it's like, can you live in a house that has no walls? It's like, this is impossible. That makes no sense. There are no walls, no spikes on top of the wall. It's like, hell no. Slept for like 2 months with a knife under my pillow. And every time I heard something, I was like, dang, there's somebody breaking in the house. Let me get ready to kill or die. And it was a cat. So, and I put myself in that situation, right? When things got hard, I was like, well, I chose this. I have no friends. I had one friend. I started making friends, of course, but at first year, I had maybe 2 or 3 friends. one of them didn't even speak Portuguese, and we became friends through sign language, pretty much, at a climbing gym. So that was um, hard, I would say. But looking back, it seemed way harder in the past than now.
Mm.
It still was hard, and it is hard. Um, but I think we get scared sometimes when something seems really hard, and you get overwhelmed with that idea until you actually put your effort completely, you're all in. Once you're all in, that hard thing is still hard, but it gives you a confidence boost, you know, confidence boost, I would say. You make something that was hard looking not so hard. It's doesn't make sense to you. Like, it's still hard, but it's just, you get used to that. You
Yeah.
get used to the challenge, and you start naturally asking for more. Um, and that was it. So that was
Yeah,
one of the
man.
hardest things. Then I joined an army. I was like, let me go back to what I know. I joined the U.S. Army, and I knew I had to refine and sharpen my language skills. And I was like, how can I go to school,
Mm.
learn things, stay active, physically active, and um, have a job,
Yeah.
and have some structure in my life, because for the past 4 years I didn't have structure, and I was missing that structure. Um, so there was another one, and it's just, impossible is a word that I don't like, because nothing's impossible. We just have those ideas that, oh, this is too hard, no, this is impossible. It's just perspective.
Yeah. And to your point, Igor, about going all in on things and realizing then later on that what you originally thought was hard maybe isn't as hard now when you look back on it. One of the reasons I love fitness and exercise in general is because I think physical limits really help us shine a light on our mental limits. What I mean by that is when we have these things in our head, like you said earlier in the podcast, it's hard to overcome those things that are purely just in our minds, because they're not really tangible. You can't really grasp them, and you can't really physically see a change there. But when you say, okay, I've never run before and I want to go out and run half a mile, and then you go do that half a mile and it's hard, and then the next day you say, I'm going to go run 1 mile, and you get to that half a mile mark and your body wants to stop and your mind is saying, I think we could do a little bit more. And you listen to it and you do a mile. And then 5 years later, you're running marathons and you look back and what you originally thought was hard actually isn't hard anymore. And you overcame those mental limits as you overcame those physical limits. And I think that's the beautiful thing about fitness, but that's the beautiful thing about your story is it's evolved over time. And now, your English is great, man. And I wish I
Thank
could
you.
have, I wish I could have met you when you were trying to order a hamburger. I would have helped you out, but you couldn't, right? But
That would have been great.
that's not a problem anymore, right? Because that's not hard anymore. You can do that. Um,
Exactly.
and I think the reason that we're able to do that and to look back and say, oh, that used to be hard, but it's not as hard, is because we endure things. We have endurance. And so to you, Igor, what does the word endurance mean when you hear that?
Mm, for me, endurance means the ability to keep moving under a huge amount of stress, either it's physical, mental, or emotional.
Mm.
You just choose to keep moving.
What is the driving force behind your endurance? Why do you keep moving?
To become a better version of myself daily, not just for me, but for the people who are in my life. My husband, I have two step kids. One of them live with me. I wanted him uh, to know that I did my best. I do my best every single day to be better than what my parents were for me. Um, so he can be better than me. for his future kids in the future. And keep evolving, keep moving, not accepting limits. We give ourselves limits, and those are fake limits until you test them, and that's what really drives me. It's see how far I can go, how better I can be. As a trainer, as a running coach, as a husband, I'm not the best, most knowledgeable one, but I want to ensure that I'm doing my best every day to be the best version of myself in every area and aspect of my life.
Yeah. And I hear a sense of perspective there where life is bigger than you, and you understand that your actions are going to affect the people close to you and the people who are maybe further away from you. And you feel, I don't know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but do you feel a certain kind of responsibility to be the best version of yourself?
Oh, sure, for sure. Of course, it's responsibility. It's probably the right word for that. Once you have reached something and that becomes your new limit, you're responsible for sharing that with other people, even how you got there, helping and guiding people and letting people know that if you made that far, they are capable to do too. And that's a responsibility as a human being is to bring others with us.
Yeah. And to that point, I think the best kind of leadership happens when people are inspired. And sure, you can lead people a million different kinds of ways, but I think the best leaders, in my opinion, in my experience, are the people who walk the walk and lift other people up in everything that they do. And you're leading by example, and I appreciate that, man. Now, I have a question for you that's not one of the typical questions. This is a little bit of a tangent, but we're going to roll with it because it's on my mind. Igor, if I said you could have $1 million right now, okay, this is hypothetical, by the way, so just don't get your hopes up. If I said you could have $1 million right now, or I will give you a penny today and double that penny for the next month, what would you take? Would you take the penny that doubles every day for a month, or would you take the $1 million right now?
I would say that the $1 million, it's really tempting, but I would probably sit down and take the penny. I would sit down, think about it, make the math, do the math, and
Let's say you have to let me know in the next 5 seconds. So you got it.
I would
5,
take the
4,
penny.
3. Okay. Good choice. Yeah. So the penny that doubles every day for a month ends up being $5.3 million, which I just think is incredible. I've heard that many times, but when you think of just a single penny doubling every single day for an entire 30 days, it ends up being $5.3 million. By day 15, it's only $163. And then in the second half of that month, it just takes off. And I think that's the beauty of endurance. And when we do something small and we continue to persist, we are showing up every single day, just trying to get a little bit better. Time can do its thing, and time could compound our effort. And that's the beauty of endurance, is when you get to stay in it for 30 days or for a lifetime, we get to see those returns. So I think that's, it's a cool image, and you chose right. So 5.3 million coming your way.
Yeah, man. Consistency compounds, right? That was, when you were asking the question, was the first thing I thought about. Consistency compounds. Choose, same choices over and over again every day. Then, you don't want to be a rock star for one day of your life, but you can be, a better person every day.
Absolutely. So Igor, as we wrap up here, people listening to the podcast, are going through a whole host of different things, right? Everybody's struggling with something. Most of those things we don't get to see on the surface. But let's just imagine that the person listening to this podcast right now is going through a really hard time. They're in a dark season of life and they're not sure what to do next. If you're speaking directly to that person right now, what would you say to them?
There is a Latin phrase that I really love, and I have it with me for years. It was part of my career. In the past, I heard from other people, and I embraced that. And I like to remember of this phrase every day. And Latin says, "Fortuna audacis sector," which means fortuna favors the brave, or fortuna follows the audacious. Fortuna is the Greek god of luck. So be brave. Then luck will come, and you're more capable of what you know. It's on you. It's within you.
Man, can you repeat that one more time? That's so beautiful. Fortuna.
Fortuna audacis sector.
And that means that fortune or luck follows the brave, follows the audacious.
Yeah, Fortuna, which is god of luck. Fortuna favors the brave, or Fortuna follows the audacious. There are two different translations for that. It's been used for many years in other within other cultures, because it is there.
So there is a quote by Rumi, who once said, as you step out on the path becomes the way. Now, you know what? I actually just butchered that. Let me just Google it real quick, because that's the beauty of technology. Let's see. Here we go. So Rumi once said, as you start to walk on the way appears. As you start to walk on the way appears. Rumi. And I think it goes hand in hand with what you just said, where if you're audacious, if you're brave, if you take that first step, the next step will be revealed to you. And doors open, opportunities come and go, but you have to be moving. And I said this on another podcast, but it's been said that God can't steer a parked car. And I think that that principle applies whether or not it's faith related. You have to be moving for things to happen. So Igor, as we wrap things up, if people want to connect with you, if they want to follow you, if they want to learn more about you, where is the best place for people to do that?
Instagram for now. It's Coach Igor Torves. Facebook, Igor Torves. And that's it. If you want to hit me up and chat, ask questions, introduce yourself, and we can chat about fitness, life, running, whatever, or just say hi. I'll be there. I'll answer to you.
I would highly recommend reaching out to Igor. You won't regret it. Igor, thank you so much. Happy early birthday. Keep smiling, keep doing your thing. And I appreciate you, man.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate you too, man. Thanks for having me on. It was a pleasure.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Project Indoor podcast, go ahead and subscribe, leave a review on your platform of choice, and share this episode with a friend. It helps us get more conversations like this out to more people like you. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next time. And one more thing. If you're looking for a community of people all striving to be better together, check out the Project Indoor Hard Things Club. The link is in the description below. We'd love to have you.